Have out your Fusion packet, pages 210 and 211. This is looking at what are the two types of cells over on the right-hand side, but also on the left-hand side on 210. What parts do all cells have in common? So different cells different cells vary in size and shape. However, all cells have some parts in common, including a cell membrane, cytoplasm, organelles, and DNA. These different parts help the cell carry out all of the tasks needed for life. So on the outside edge, kind of like encasing a cell, is a cell membrane. A cell membrane is a protective layer that covers a cell's surface and acts as a barrier between the inside of the cell and the cell's environment. It also controls materials such as water and oxygen that can move in and out of a cell. And then the next one, cytoplasm, is inside the cell. It says it's the region enclosed by the cell membrane that includes the fluid and all of the organelles of the cell is called the cytoplasm. So I think of cytoplasm kind of as a jelly-like substance, and it's holding in all those organelles. So then the organelles. An organelle is a small body in a cell's cytoplasm that is specialized to perform a certain or specific function. Cells can have one or more types of organelles. Most, but not all organelles also have a membrane around them. So we talked about the cell having a membrane around it, so a lot of organelles also have a membrane kind of holding them all in. DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is a genetic material that provides instructions for all cell processes. Organisms inherit DNA from their parent or parents. In some cells, the DNA is contained in a membrane-bound organelle called the nucleus. In other types of cells, the DNA is not contained in a nucleus. So the nucleus is this kind of like sphere in the middle of the cell, and the DNA would be hosted inside of there in this type of cell. On the next page, we'll see a cell where it's not enclosed in the nucleus. So over here, then it says, what are the two types of cells? Although cells have some basic parts in common, there are some important differences. The way that cells store their DNA is the main difference between the two types of cell. So over here, it did tell us to underline some, so you can see that those kind of the definition or the function, rather, of the organelles is underlined there. Over here, it says to underline the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So prokaryote and eukaryote is kind of the plural form of prokaryotic and eukaryotic, or talking about those. So a prokaryotic cell is a single-celled organism that does not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. The DNA is located just in the cytoplasm. Prokaryotic cells contain organelles called ribosomes that do not have a membrane. Some prokaryotic cells have hair-like structure called flagella that help them move. Prokaryotes, which include all bacteria and archaea, are smaller than eukaryotes. So the prokaryotic cell is a more simple type of cell, and so it does not have the membrane-bound organelles. It doesn't have a nucleus. The DNA is just kind of floating around in the cytoplasm. So as we are looking, if we were going to label here, so A is the cell membrane. B would be the DNA just floating around in the cytoplasm. C, of course, is the cytoplasm, or the stuff that's the jelly stuff inside the cell. And then D, it's pointing to some different things in here. D are the organelles. So in this simple type of cell, it's kind of just like an encasement. The prokaryotic cell and the organelles are just kind of floating around there in the cytoplasm. A eukaryotic cell, however, is an organism that's made up of cells that have their DNA in a nucleus. Eukaryotic cells contain membrane-bound organelles as well as ribosomes. Not all eukaryotic cells are the same. Animals, plants, protists, and fungi are all eukaryotes. More multicellular organisms are eukaryotes. Most eukaryotes are multicellular. Some eukaryotes, such as amoebas and yeasts, are unicellular. So if we were going to be labeling the parts inside of the eukaryotic cell, our E would be our cell membrane, so around the edge, the cell membrane. F, they did the DNA within the nucleus for you. G is going to be the cytoplasm, or the gel inside of the cell. And then H is pointing to all these different organelles. And later on, we will talk more about all the different organelles in a cell, but that's as far as we're going to go today.